Hey everybody, how you doing? I hope you're well, and I hope that Perez Hilton, fellow OG blogger and now vlogger, recovers from his latest exhibit of mental illness. Perez is someone whose work I have both enjoyed and loathed over the 20 years plus that I have been blogging and vlogging about his work, his news, and if you can put it this way, his behavior. Perez is the first openly direct blogger to put his feelings and in such a way that he actually wrote them on his blogs in a kind of a really fascinating uh, uh, way of expressing his take on, say, Lady Gaga or Michael Jackson or anything else. And 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 so and so the the situation in this case I'll get to, but it's a fair guess that a large number of you, maybe half, certainly not the majority, but maybe half of you are not fully aware of Perez Hilton. And first of all, you have to understand very quickly that blogging, uh, the act of writing on a web page or web blogging, as it's actually called, started as a technology in 2001. And I joined Pyra Labs Blogger in 2002. And why? Why I did is another long story that I'll save for another video. But I wound up starting Oakland's first news blog because the creation of blogging itself happened to dovetail with my getting fired by then Oakland Mayor Jerry Brown, because Brown was upset that I, in so many words, accused him of being racist in an email to my board of the Oakland Alameda County Sports Commission. I wanted to tell my story. The news media was telling their story. And so I was able to do so through the brand new technology of blogging. But Perez took this exposition of emotions and thought and intellect that's so wonderfully chronicled in Scott Rosenberg's book called Say Anything. In fact, I interviewed Scott Rosenberg about that back in 2020. It's right here, 2-hour interview in Berkeley, one of the great hotels there. But the bottom line is, it was a new way of expression for people. And Perez got it better than everybody else. And this, we're not even talking about video. Video came just a little bit later, not too much. But Perez was known for bullying his subjects, generally people who were in the higher areas of entertainment, like Britney Spears, who he unmercifully blogged about because of her DUIs and her other actions and attention getting and the new medium of new media, as it was called. Now we call it social media. And Perez liked to say that he helped discover Lady Gaga, but Perez also famously skewered Lady Gaga seemingly any chance he got. But then, toward, I would say, 2006, 2007, Perez began to act out. His first realization that the camera was on him and that he can make a big difference was really something that he did was very constructive. That was the 2007 Miss Universe pageant. Miss Universe was owned by Donald Trump, and Perez Hilton was one of the judges. And Perez asked Carrie Prejean, who was one of the contestants, if gay marriage should be legalized. She said no, and that set off a huge firestorm at the time of discussion, both on news media and on the new world of the internet. And it made Perez famous. But he didn't stop there. What happened to him next happened in 2009. And I assert it was this incident 17 years ago with will.i.am at the Much Music Festival that caused Perez to change and become a born again Christian just a few years later. What happened was that, according to how Perez told the story, and it is actually, if you want to see it, I'm not going to play it entirely, but it is here, and you can see you can see his meltdown. It was a meltdown, folks. This day, it was a meltdown for its day. No, he didn't threaten to do anything to himself, but he was crying, emotional, and in a way I have never seen to that point. Again, it was historic because of the way that Perez used the medium. All right, of the way Perez did it, and so he reported that what happened was that will.i.am, or Perez said that will.i.am hit him in the eye, attacked him in the title. Actually, that's not what happened. What happened was that will.i.am's bodyguard hit him. And why did all this happen? Because the Black Eyed Peas, to a person, disliked Perez Hilton because he openly did not like their music. But what happened was at the Much Music Festival, will.i.am and Fergie approached Perez, or in will.i.am's case, confronted Perez, depending on how you look at it, or if you believe Perez's side of the story. And then there's a video of the back, what he did and said. will.i.am came up to him in a way, it's like, hey, what do you have against our music? And they basically said, keep your name out. Oh, keep our name out of your blog. Stop writing about us. Don't mention us, period. That was what he said. Perez wasn't going to take it. He stood his ground. And as he said later in this video that I have here at Zenny62 YouTube, he said that he was determined to say the meanest thing he could think of out of his mouth to will.i.am at the time. Smart? No, it was completely dumb. All right. But he did. He called him the F word, the version of the F word that starts with an F and ends with a T. And after that, allegedly will.i.am's, well, I can say just will.i.am's assistant hit Perez in the eye. In fact, Perez he says he hit him in the eye, and he hit him 3 times in the eye. And then after he hit him in the eye, will.i.am and this gentleman followed Perez back to the place he was staying at for the event. And so Perez called the police. Now, then at that point in his description on the video that I have, Perez starts crying hysterically. Again, complete meltdown, just tearfully upset. Nobody treats me that way. It was awful. And folks, you can understand if somebody hits you the way that Perez described he was hit, not once, not twice, but 3 times in the eye by this guy. And then on top of that, will.i.am says that it was a random fan who hit Perez. It was not a random fan. will.i.am knew precisely who hit Perez. But you would say, Zenny, what does this have to do with Perez now? Aside from the fact that it's very simple, because I can see how someone would say that. I'm going to just say this. Every single time Perez feels he needs to make a point and issue a cry for help, he uses media and acts out in ways that are strange and don't put him in the best light, but he doesn't care. And that's precisely what happened this time. Now, the question is what triggered it? And I can guess. I believe it had something to do with something someone said to him, because this is how he is, psychologically. And whoever said it Maybe it was a family member. Maybe it was somebody I hadn't seen in a long time since he's in Miami. Maybe he's in a different environment. Maybe it was whatever. Someone who could get to him said something that got to him. And he decided that he was going to make a video that basically seemed to communicate that he was going to harm himself in a way where he may not return to life. Okay? And so I pray for Perez to really finally get the help he needs, because he's been angling toward this kind of behavior for some time. He said to someone I saw on YouTube, a broadcaster in Miami, he said to her that it was in 2010 that he started the path to become a born-again Christian. I thought, well, let me think. What happened before then? I thought, oh, of course, will.i.am and Fergie. And why would that happen? Because right up to that point, Perez was roundly criticized for bullying people, for leading to others, for some others, other actors and actresses to have mental breakdowns themselves because of what he wrote about them or the information that he would put out about them. That's why, if you're wondering why is it that there's some people who are not really coming to his defense, it's because of his history. Now, I say this, look, again, Perez is somebody who I've always admired. He showed others how to get it done. He took risks and he took challenges. I've written this and I've said it and I'll say it again, that others should not take. If you're going to go into this area of work, if you're going to make your own blogs and have your own company, be careful what you say to people, what you put out, and make sure that you are able to cross your I's and dot your T's, because if you don't, you could get sued or worse. Worse. There are people like myself who've received death threats over the years. I got one when I was at the SF Gate. Kevin Skaggs was the editor, and it was the first time that happened to me in that way, where someone actually wrote that I should be, and Kevin said, well, he didn't say he was going to do it. He said he thought it should happen to you. I said, what's the difference? Kevin thought it was funny. Kevin, to this day, it's not funny. All right. But you get these folks who are in media and they get hardened that way. And so suddenly things that you think are tragic are not to them. And so my reaction is in between Perez's and Kevin's, which is on the other end, which is completely insensitive. All right. But the bottom line is, if you're going to be in this business and you do what Perez does, you trigger people. And you can't be so sensitive. In fact, a friend of mine kind of warned me about that one day, a long time ago. Lindsay Huff said, you're a really nice and sensitive guy, but you seem to really also care about what people say. How can you care about what people say about you and yet, be so emotionally reactional about it? I said, you have a good point. And it's the same question you would have to aim to Perez. All right. What's going on? I'll tell you one thing I believe is going on with Perez, aside from what I've already said, is that Perez, pure and simple, is not making enough money. He is at 600 YouTube subscribers, which is a lot. Look, I've got 51,837. Okay, fine. But the bottom line is that Perez Hilton on his blog, and he said this in my video on the will.i.am matter, he could command 10 million followers. All right, not 100 million, not even a million, 10 million followers. And this is in 2009, when there are fewer people getting their content on the internet. So it was a lot easier to get your name out there and amid the traffic, right? There wasn't as much traffic. Today, it's a lot harder. And Perez, on top of that, toned himself down, went away from the antics, and became a father of 3 and a born-again Christian. So whatever happened to him was an emotional reaction to having to change from living in Las Vegas to Miami, on top of what someone said to him that triggered him. Someone triggered him. This didn't happen because one day he was kind of just following along and farting around and he decided to go off about something. No, somebody said that to him. Someone said that to him. All right. When I have to admit that when I first heard about what had happened, I thought, is this Perez's play for relevancy? Because we haven't heard from him in so long. Is this, you're right? And again, I think I would be forgiven for thinking that because he is sort of faded compared to what he was. He was, hey, look, still showing up on television stations and news pieces, still doing segments for news organizations, still very much relevant, but in a world where the YouTube vlogosphere is led by Mr. Beast, who has several million subscribers on YouTube, and Darman, who before he became a YouTuber was famous for trying to defraud the Oakland Redevelopment Agency. No joke, folks. He claims to have 112 million followers. I believe a lot of them are bought, but that's another story. My point is, when you're up against that kind of firepower of followers, real or fake, all right, and you're cruising in at 600,000, you're not commanding the same amount of dollars. You're not. And that's where Perez Hilton sat. So then you've got his family needing help, the finances piling up, and then I believe this trigger. I don't believe all the other matters I mentioned would even lead him into the direction that we are seeing him having taken. All right. I believe somebody triggered him. I believe someone triggered him. The question is who and why? And can he recover from it? It's one thing to say that, well, he's getting the right treatment, but is he able to remove the mental trigger that set him off in the first place? Because if he's not, next time could be far worse. And I hope and pray to God that's not the case. For all of his good and bad, my opinion of Perez Hilton, Manuel Lavandera, is that he is a net gift to American culture, who helped launch blogging and showed a lot of people how it's done and forever changed the face of how news, entertainment media is done. And that's a fact. So give him his props, folks. And just pray that he recovers from what has been bothering him and that he continues to get the help that he needs, and he finds a brand new center and gets a nice corporate sponsor in Miami, where he's able to get his platform on the right stage yet again. All right. Hey, thanks. And if anybody wants to share some stories and remembrances about Perez Hilton, he comes from a time that was really great for Zenny 62 Media. We had, I don't know if she, hope she's well right now, but we had a, I'll just famed blogger ourselves who got into a little tiff with a woman named Tina Tequila, Tina Tequila, and one of our bloggers really got to her, and I had so much, so I had to really rein in my blogger. But again, I could say Tina Tequila started it, but our blogger really came back and really held her own. I'll just say that. You can type Tina Tequila on and then Zenny 62 and find what I'm talking about. But Nikki Rainey, our blogger and vlogger, had all kinds of headlines like about Tina Tequila and how she claimed that Tequila had multiple personalities and alter egos and so on. So, but that was classic blogging. And what Nikki Rainey did was historic, amazing, and still up and still visible on our websites. So there it is, folks. It's just there it is. So again, and we can move beyond that and talk about Radar Online. It was the heady days of Radar Online, how they broke stories and the kind of online material they put out. So again, it was a historic time to be alive, a fun time to be involved in it, and it set the tone for the kind of media that exists today, for better or worse. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you later. And please subscribe. Thank you.